It's the National League of Cities 2011 Congress of Cities. This is Jackie Young with NLC TV at the Phoenix Convention Center in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm here with Simeon McAleer. He's the public sector IT architect for IBM. Welcome, Mr. McAleer.
Thank you, Jackie.
How are you today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. We're glad to have you here to chat with us and tell us what you're about. I have a couple of questions here for you.
Okay.
Okay. How does IBM define a smarter city?
A smarter city is any urban area. It's not necessarily a city, but it can be a county, a state, basically organizations, municipalities that have taken their data, their information, and managed it, monitored it, and been able to make proactive decisions upon it to help engage with their citizens more effectively and efficiently.
And what distinguishes IBM in cities?
IBM, I believe, has a long history within cities. We just celebrated our centennial this past June. And you don't get to be 100 years old as a corporation without thinking ahead. One way that we do that is by thinking about the future and investing in our future through research and development. And so last year, IBM spent $6 billion in research to try to advance us. And we're at an interesting point in history where we now have the ability to measure, monitor, and manage many things out there. There's 30 billion RFID tags out there. So you can think about looking at your beef safe, for example, the way it's tracked from the farm, through transportation, all the way out to your grocery store. We can pull all of that information together. It's all interconnected. It's not separated. We are able to look at these things via the internet. So, for example, building management systems. We no longer have to just look at the boiler sitting down there cranking away, but we can now, via the internet, see what's going on with them, monitor their health, pull all of that information together. And it's a two-way street. If we look at smart grid, it's basically taking meters and putting it on the side of the house, being able to read those meters instead of once a month, but every 15 minutes. And not only reading it, but being able to give information back to those utility customers. So the utilities are able to give them things called time of day pricing, understanding that if they run their dishwasher or their dryer at 2 a.m. in the morning, the price for them is going to be a lot cheaper. So that helps pull all of that information together. And then when you think about it, we're generating 8 times the information that's in the U.S. libraries today. Each day, that's the amount of new information that's getting generated. 15 petabytes. It's a lot of data that you have to sort through and understand. And so we've come to the point where we have algorithms that are smart enough to understand how to find the wheat from the chaff, being able to pull the signal from all of that noise. And we have computers that are strong enough to be able to help us do that in real time, to give our city managers more information effectively to be able to react in real time and proactively. Instead of just worrying about whether a water main is going to break, being able to understand what conditions are setting up which types of water mains which might break in the future. Because the biggest problem that you could have is one that has become a problem. If you can go out and address and fix that pipe safe, for example, at nighttime before you have to disrupt rush hour traffic, it's a lot cheaper for the city. And so we can bring all of those things to bear.
And how could a city start on its way to becoming smarter?
We get that question a lot as we talk to different folks. The best way that we can think about it is first understanding what the city wants to do. What's its long-term goal and what's its short-term visions? What do they want to be known for? Do they want to be a sustainable city? Do they want to be a tourist mecca? As they think about those, they can identify different areas and priorities as they look at their peer cities to understand where are they today and where do they need to be in the future. Based on that, they can invest in the different systems to get them to those future goals. But they need to understand that it's a system of systems when you look at cities. Take, for example, an anecdote that we have from a city in the Northeast. The MTA, the Metropolitan Transit Authority, decided they needed to cut their budget, and they cut money from free cards for the students. The students used those free transfer passes on their buses on the subways to get to school. When they weren't there anymore, the students didn't go to school. The schools lost money because they didn't have the students in the seats. Then public safety issues were impacted as well because the students no longer going to school were out getting into trouble. They created graffiti, they were loitering. There was more impact on the public safety having to address those issues. The justice of the peace systems got backed up because they had more loitering cases and truancy cases that they had to address students not in school. There was an impact on that system. And then there was an economic development impact on the rest of the city as well because parents had to come out of their jobs and now go in front of these justice of the peaces about what their kids are doing. So even though it was a small decision on the MTA's part, it impacted the city as a whole.
So when you open up a dialogue with a city, are you approaching the conversation first on a systems level, or are you, talking about the components of a system, or how's it start?
I think the best thing that we can do is when we come in and we talk to them about what they want to accomplish, understanding where they want to go, what their brand is, and then helping them understand what IBM has done in the past. We've had 2,000 engagements worldwide around smarter cities, folks that have helped work with us around smart buildings, smart energy, smart water, public safety, trying to show them what we've done in the past. That helps them understand what we can do. And so say, for example, that they've had criminal issues. Say, for example, the city of Memphis. The criminal rate was rising dramatically in the city. They had to do something about it. The city police chief met with the university Department of Criminal Justice and said, what can we do? The criminal justice professor had a history in statistical information. He said, give me some of the data, let me take a look at it, and I can basically help you understand how you can put the right police officer on the right corner at the right time. And so through that modeling, he developed a program called Blue Crush, criminal reduction utilizing statistical history. They were able to reduce the serious crimes in the city by 30%, and then the violent crimes in the city by 15%. That's all well and good. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's like what the professor said. We were losing citizens before due to criminal activity. But now there's hundreds of citizens each year that don't have to suffer the indignity of having a gun put in their face and getting robbed or violent criminal activity upon them. That helps bring people into the city. It helps Memphis become better, safer, and so they can look at it as a smart city, how they've moved and wanted to be known as a smarter city.
So it sounds as though IBM as a company can bring lessons learned from not only your history but also other cities. Is that true?
It is absolutely true. We can bring a lot of the lessons that we've learned based on being in existence for 100 years, as well as the research that we're putting into our cities, into the universities. Investing $6 billion last year, we developed something called Watson. Now, I don't know if you saw the TV show when the Watson computer played on the Jeopardy contest,
actually.
And we defeated the past champions. We have a sample in the booth that we have here today.
Uh-huh.
We put a lot of information, like I mentioned before, that 15 petabytes of data that's being generated each year, that's a lot of information. We need to help the city managers understand what they can do to figure out how they can make effective decisions. And so by looking at Watson, we were able to take the information. It's what we call unstructured. It doesn't sit in a database where there's rows and columns and it's easy to pick out. It might be somebody writing down notes. It might be a telephone conversation. How do you take that information, sort through it, and pull out what you want? It's not like a Google search going out and saying, I want to find out what the average U.S. rate is for water. That'll return a bunch of pages and you may or may not find the information. With Watson, we've developed a system that it can pull that information and give you results and give you predictions in terms of how accurate we feel the results are. And so all of these things we can bring this to bear to help the cities become smarter.
And what about the smaller cities that may be behind on the technology infrastructure? Are they a bigger challenge, or what's the conversation like with them?
So even smaller cities have the same issues that the bigger cities do. Everybody is facing these infrastructure deficiencies. They're getting reduced revenue from taxes, property and sales tax, and they're being asked to do more with less. It's a large city, it's a small city. But independent of their size, they need to understand how they can get to that smarter vision. Even the smaller city needs to understand where they want to go. And they all have to start at one place. You can think of a system of systems, but if you want to impact your quality of life, you might first need to impact your public safety. To do that, you need to look and see, on an axis of complexity, do I have the basic information to pull together? Can all of my different systems talk to each other? Start small and then continue to build out incrementally. And that's how the smaller cities can get engaged, because they still need to start understanding where my assets are, understanding how I integrate some of these data sources, the same way that the big cities need to as well.
And so, speaking of integration, are you integrating cities with each other within a state or a region? Or is that part of what you're doing?
We have tried to do that through some of our cloud modeling. We've worked with some cities in upstate New York, as well as the Michigan Municipal League of Cities, pulling together a cloud version where we can do some back office things like maybe tax applications for them and provide that to the cities that are smaller, unable to afford some of the bigger software packages. How can we help enable them? And we've delivered that through a cloud, and we've looked at being able to do that as well. One of the things that we've developed now is the Intelligent Operations Center. It's basically a hub as you look at it. We take all of our experience with our 2,000 worldwide projects, take that integrated into this hub so then we can add on. We can deliver and add on and make it accessible to the bigger cities, the smaller cities, so they don't have to go through those growing pains that we did as we did first of a kinds or research or just deploy these. So they can take part of that and they can either deploy that on their site or we can manage it and deliver it via a cloud. And that would be, for example, a way a smaller city can access this.
So in terms of the cloud, is that where you see things progressing more and more, at least in your sphere?
I do see lots and lots. I see at this particular moment lots of people understand the cloud. We've gotten past the point where the cloud is this, pardon the expression, this nebulous being out there in the air in the space.
Cloud.
Yeah. So they understand what it can do for them. They still need to understand how they can invest in that and the best ways for them to invest. Which services do they want to move off? What can they think is accessible in the cloud? When you talk about putting things on the cloud, there's certain things that you can and certain things that you can't. You might be scared, for example, about security risks if you take your correction systems or your court systems data and put that on the cloud. If somebody hacks that, there's proprietary or security risk information in terms of citizens' social security numbers, their arrest history. You've got to be careful. And so that's where we see cities today, trying to understand which systems they'll put out there and then how do they get started.
So are you excited about the upcoming years and what do you think?
I'm very excited about the upcoming years. I think IBM is in a strong position to help folks moving forward. And I think, like I mentioned before, with all the instrumentation, with the interconnection, and the analysis and algorithms to pull it all together, cities are facing a tough time. But we see ways that we can use technology to help them become more efficient and help the citizens as they move forward in the future.
Well, I mean, I think it sounds great. It seems like you're excited about it. I really appreciate you coming by.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Again, this is Jackie Young with NLC TV from Phoenix, Arizona at the Phoenix Convention Center 2011 Congress of Cities.